It's taking me some time to complete these things. I do apologize. I'm not very technologically savvy. I've spent most of the past 2 weeks filming things and then realizing that they were unusable because of noise or other limitations. So I'm sorry. It's taking me a while to work it out. I would like to very much thank Jess, Tess, and Jose, and also Jason for contributing some money to my Patreon account, which is why I have a tripod at the moment to hold up this camera. Yay! And I'm ordering a microphone, which I hope will get rid of some of my sound issues. I'd also like to thank Jitsukawa-san for letting me use this storeroom, which is air-conditioned and sealed and therefore quiet, which is very nice. Much gratitude for that. If anybody else is interested in supporting or finds this useful enough to support in any way, there is a link underneath this video to a Patreon page. So, Heaven to Earth. The title is taken from one of the ways, or the most common way of sheathing the sword, with the edge up or the edge down. The edge down was commonly used for cavalry work, like drawing from a horseback. And that draw was called Earth to Heaven draw. And then the other way, with the edge up, would draw vertically top to bottom, and that was Heaven to Earth. That's a very old phrase. This particular draw, and then leading from that into the practice of Kasumi no Kata, concentrates on 3 separate points that I'll just talk about now. The first is safety. One of the prerequisites for developing a kind of calm mind during the practice of these things is a sense of a safe relationship with your own blade. There's a kind of rain shadow, behind your sword, from the back of the sword. And it sounds like a very obvious truism to say, keep the edge and the point facing towards your opponent. Stick them with the pointy end. But it's remarkable the extent to which that is folded into the Itto, that you are always in a safe relationship with your own blade. And developing that from the very beginning is extremely useful. And it's not simply a matter of safety. It's a matter of developing a relationship. Yeah. A thing you can notice sometimes with beginners in Kenjutsu is that if they only do kata with no explanation with people who are better than them, that at a certain point they develop good distancing without being told. And that good distancing is essentially their bodies telling them when they are in danger and when they are not, because their teachers consistently attack from the same distance, the correct distance, right? And at some point the body simply knows this is a dangerous distance, this is a safe distance, down to the millimeter, right? It's not a mental thing or a conceptual thing, it's a body thing. And that body sense should be developed consistently throughout your training. And this technique is a beginning step to that. It's a very rudimentary kind of step to it, but it's letting your body feel the difference between facing the blade and being safely behind the blade as you draw, and moving into this safe place as you draw, and the effect that has on how you feel, like the feeling of solidity or calm. Even with, I mean, I'm using wood here. I usually practice this with a steel blade. And the sense of steel you feel it in your body, the sense of danger. But just physically doing this drawing will begin to teach your body that sense of step into this safe space, stay in that safe space with relationship to your own blade. And from that safe space you can move out and move back according to your situation. And this cultivation is a good thing, a wonderful thing, because that sense of safety or danger extrapolates out into the world very, 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 very well, so that you can simply listen to your body and know to a certain extent how safe you are. The second major point that we want to look at today is to do with three-dimensional movement. This drawer has an opening of the front side of the chest, of the waki, which is the side here, and the chest itself, and the opening back of the other side, and then the stepping into and opening the body forward. These three movements simultaneously, and timing them and getting a feel for moving these three parts of the body in an overlapped kind of way. It's tricky actually, but it's very much worth beginning and absorbing yourself in. Three-dimensional movement, or three-line movement, as my sensei sometimes called it, is a subcategory of the subject of speed. Speed has several different ways of defining it, like a high school physics way, meaning how long it takes to move between A and B. But one of the ways, or one of the alternate definitions that is sometimes used in martial arts is not how quick does it take to move between A and B, but how quickly do other people react to you moving between A and B. And certain kinds of movement are slower to cause a reaction. And the important parts of that seem to be if the beginning of the movement is easy to read or not. And one way to hide the beginning of movement is to move several things simultaneously. So there's no like central point around which the movement is moving, and there's no sharp, sudden beginning. So if three things move simultaneously, then where the beginning is much less obvious to the eye and to like the unconscious as well. Yeah. It's not a magic bullet by any means, but it's a kind of movement which causes less sharp responses. And so consistently moving that way tends to make your form feel faster to other people. Even if it feels like perfectly reasonable to you, it's just that because you're moving several things at once, it's harder to see the beginning of it. And people react more slowly to it. Fast people still react quickly, of course, but it's a good yardstick for your movement. Is it easy to read? Yeah? And three-dimensional movement is more difficult to read than single source movement. Yeah, like one thing moving and one movement which has a central point. Sensei used to say, remove the jiku, then remove the axis point from your movements, so that you can't pinpoint easily where it starts and what it's revolving around. The third thing to look at is the entry. And so this step, separate from its participation in three-dimensional movement, this entry step, although that also should be three-dimensional, is a core practice as well. All of the offensive half of the Itto-ryu, in a general sense, is about entering and closing distance and taking the initiative and finding holes and forcing errors and these kind of things. And all of them have some aspect of closing distance quickly, or attempting to close distance quickly, or in deceptive ways, or in intelligent ways. And so this step, which is slide 1 foot forward and then let your weight draw your body or wring your body into the shape hitoemi, which is one line, which is the safest way to move forward, and also it gives you extra distancing. Just because of the way it structures the body, you can lean forward more than you could if you were facing forward. Sorry, that takes a bit more explanation. If your body is in hitoemi, it's kind of sideways, and so the structure of the body is organized such that it's drawn taut in the hips in a way which means you can push forward more and with more solidity in your lower body than if you were with your hips square to what you were facing, where you were rotating in the hip joint this way. It's designed to go a long way forward, and so there's not the same structural support in the hips. When you go into hitoemi, you have access to, in my body, an extra like between 15 and 30 centimeters of reach as a result of that. And the other reason for going into this hitoe line is because it pulls everything into a narrow focus, which means it's very like structurally solid, as I said, forward to back. It's weak right to left, but that matters less when you have weapons. It matters with like grappling and things like that, which is why grapplers tend to have a much more square kind of shape. In the Itto-ryu, this entry and this hitoemi shape is much more important for the offensive half than the defensive half. The offensive half has to close distance in order to attack. The defensive partner can kind of wait for them, so they don't need to be in such they don't need to cover distance in the same way. And so they have a much more relaxed and normal kind of stance. That will become clearer later when we start to look at these kata. For the moment, simply practicing this step by technically letting the tanden throw the leg forward as it makes contact, sinking your weight into it and letting that sinking draw your body into a straight line. If you simply do the practices as I'm about to demonstrate them, you will begin to get a sense for it. As I am doing this, you will notice that when I do it slowly, I put my foot forward and rest my heel on the ground and then rock forward. This is not technically correct, because when you do it for real, at a more advanced level, you should just do it without like placing your foot that way. You put the whole foot down as one thing. However, the feeling of rocking gets over another problem, which is trying to move the back leg rather than pulling it forward with your stomach, with your tanden, your belly. There is a tendency to open forward and then open back, which is a mistake. You open forward, and the opening forward draws your entire body into a straight line. There is no need for this backward opening. I will demonstrate it in a second. Practicing that, just the drawing, for a couple of minutes a day will start to get a sense of the lines in your body and the way your soft tissue moves and rings around those lines as you move through these things, and also a sense of safety behind the blade, and of the beginnings of a three-dimensional movements of three things moving at once. Okay, to work!